Dr. Jeff, briefly tell me about you.
I mean, how am I supposed to answer that question? The more you open yourself to that experience, the more Alice in Wonderland the whole story gets. Your job is to search for the meaning of your existence.
People tend to react. Every situation seems to be coming from a place of fear.
Do I believe that the universe is a hostile environment, or do I believe that the universe has my back? My only job is to follow my heart.
Thank you, universe.
Hello, Dr. Jeff.
Hi, I was glad to be here.
Very happy to have you here. And I just want to start by saying, if I saw you on the street and I said, "Hi, my name is Mitra. Can you briefly tell me about you?" And I have 3 minutes maximum. What would you tell me about yourself?
I mean, I used to have a sort of a little joke that I have a PhD in otherology. I mean, how am I supposed to answer that question? I thought, I mean, whatever you think it's all about, you're probably wrong. Because it's so far beyond thinking. It's an experience that is indefinable. And the more you open yourself to that experience, the more Alice in Wonderland the whole story gets.
That's wonderful for me. I love Alice in Wonderland. Tell me about you, Dr. Jeff.
I thought I was going to be an artist. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. I went to art school in the 60s. I was a musician and a filmmaker. And then at 29, I had a big decision I made and went back to school, to chiropractic college, and graduated and got a job in the largest sort of holistic health center in Virginia. I, at a certain point, realized, I could probably go down to the bank and probably get a loan, I bet you. Because I'm a successful doctor, I've got a big clinic, and I'm going to go down and get a loan, and I'm going to buy the coolest high-tech sound equipment I can buy, and outfit my spare room with a recording studio. And then my wife wants me to work on her back because I'm a chiropractor. So I pop my portable table open like usual and put her on the table and stepped back and realized I just had been set up by the universe again. That I've got a patient on a treatment table in a recording studio. And I'm thinking, I wonder if I could make a chiropractic adjustment with the sound wave. So I did some testing, and the next thing I know, I found a frequency for L5, put a speaker on her back, and it worked. She got up, no pain. All my testing showed it was good. And I realized that the little question that I'd asked, I wonder if, became one of the biggest doors in my life I ever stepped through. And I could bring it back to this huge clinic. Where it really shone was cranial sacral work. I mean, now you can pick any of the 26 cranial bones and resonate it individually with a sound wave. Organs, glands. What about the brain? Brain's an organ. What if you could find the frequency for the brain? What would it do? And that was the sort of my epiphany in the big holistic idea. So the big holistic idea is there's an organic biological intelligence inside of each of us that knows how to grow my body out of 2 cells and differentiate the tissues and make them all run on automatic without me thinking about it. There's a brain under the hood here that's doing all this automated job. Then there's me up here who doesn't have a clue what's like, right? I'm going to chiropractic school and I have to, and it's blood, sweat, and tears and money and books and all-nighters studying for exams. And I'm thinking, wait a second, time out. Didn't I grow this system? Why do I have to hire somebody so I can memorize what's there? What has gone on here? And then I realized when I'm studying anatomy and physiology that nothing that the body does is not on purpose. Everything is on purpose for a reason. There's a reason why this part up here doesn't have a clue what's going on down here. 2 different jobs to do. The body doesn't want the monkey mind to be screwing around with the big machine.
Take me to your journey of being here today.
I have this sort of funny relationship with the universe. For instance, when I was in the artist mode and I had this business where I was making reproductions of 18th century pewter tableware and going to conferences, I was a craftsman and had a company. I went to chiropractic school. I'd never been to a chiropractor before. That tells you everything you need to know about me. But I took a trip out to Davenport, Iowa to hang around for a week and absolutely got my mind blown by what was going on there and came back all ready to go. Then I realized I got this 2-story house full of stuff that I had traded as a craftsman. I had blown glass and leather works and furniture and carpets and, I was a filmmaker. I had big cameras. I had 24 films I'd make. I was an artist. I had all this artwork and I'm thinking, how am I going to get all this stuff out to Iowa? I mean, I can't afford to do that. And I'm talking myself out of it. And I sort of believe that everybody's got some guardian angel or a circle of elders up there whose job it is to watch out for your journey. And they're up there going, oh man, look at him. He's talking himself out of this. What are we going to do? So they burned my house down.
What a blessing.
It all burned.
Wow, almost like something that you asked from universe and you got it. How am I going? Wasn't that interesting? The question you asked, how am I going to take this with me? And universe said, I lighten your load for you.
Answer is, you don't need to take it with you. And here's some insurance money, which will be just enough to answer all the questions you needed about first and last
everything you want.
School books, and you can travel light. So it's like, when I graduated from chiropractic college, and now I'm out looking for a job. My strategy is, let's get a job in a chiropractic clinic and learn the ropes. And somehow a friend called me up and said, hey, there's a holistic clinic in Northern Virginia. I think they're looking for jobs. So I called him up. He said, come on up. So I drove 3 hours up there, had an interview, and got hired on the spot in the largest holistic health center in Virginia. All of a sudden, I'm seeing 40 patients a day with a nurse going next to me and have to figure out how to do this. And after about 7 months, the guy who owned the place, he's forced into bankruptcy. So we approached the bankruptcy court because this is a place of all specialized equipment. And so we offered him 5 cents on the dollar and he took it. And I ended up with the largest holistic health center in my lap in my first year of practice. There's this sort of thing where you're fated to walk this path in your life. Your job is to search for the meaning of your existence. Why am I here? What am I here to do? Why did the universe create me as this unique kind of envelope of talents and ability that nobody else has ever had or ever will have? That road always leads to a fork. And that means that you're fated to walk a road that leads to a fork where you're forced by fate to make a free will decision over and over and over again. My choice is right fork or left fork. And the right fork is my heartstrings pulling me there. But my mind, my rational mind, is looking and going, I don't see a path there for me. I don't see how I'm going to make it work. And then the left road is get a job. And you've got a paycheck, and you've got medical, and you've got a 401k retirement account. You can sort of see how you'll be safe. The day you first choose the left fork, you've stepped off your path onto an artificial path for an artificial goal. And I believe that's where the sickness begins. It's the sickness of the soul. It's part of you that now is a child that's lost in the woods and doesn't know their way home. This is the biggest breakthrough that I would see with patients when I was in practice. The ones who had sort of physical detoxifications, we know what that looks like. Emotional detoxifications of traumas, we know what that looks like. Mental detoxifications of self-defeating belief systems, No matter how many doctors I see, I'll never get well, kind of a thing. And this is the spiritual detoxification, where you teleport back to the very first time in your life when you chose the left fork instead of the right one. And what was behind that? Why? Why did you make that choice? Out of fear that I don't know how I'm going to make it work. I don't know how I'm going to be safe. It's all boiled down to, do I believe that the universe is a hostile environment that I have to fight tooth and claw for my little spot and then defend that spot for the rest of my life? Or do I believe that the universe is a beneficent place whose sole job is to support me when I make the right decision to take the right path? I know if I truly believe that the universe has my back, it's not my job to figure out how all that's going to work. That's going to unfold before me like a flower. The universe is going to open that up for me. The universe is going to open doors and turn lights green and introduce me to just the right people, or burn my house down.
I'm curious. You talked about taking the left fork versus the right fork. What is a significant decision you made in your life when you took the left fork instead of the right fork?
It wasn't so much taking the left fork. It wasn't listening to my little voice. The little voice that goes, maybe you should look at this twice. I have a little red flag here. And when I don't listen to that voice, I always get in trouble. I had developed a sort of a multi-million-dollar business plan with my technologies, sound technologies. And in order to move it to the next step, I needed a CEO type and I needed a credit card company. And I found both those guys introduced to me by a friend. And everything seemed to be hunky-dory. And they wanted a letter of intent so everybody could move forward. And so we did that. Signed and then immediately they treated that as a contract, a legal binding document, and then they tried to take over my country the next day, my company. They took out secret bank accounts. All the money was going to them. I couldn't tell what was going on. They were secretly remaking my product. I mean, they were stealing my image and my mind and my likeness, and it was this thing. I mean, they stole me and everything I'd done. That was a hard lesson.
And probably, many blessings came out of that as well, I'm sure.
Many blessings came out of that. Something deep in me matured big time.
Yeah. So many people can relate, maybe not to that degree, in varying degrees to that. And what I find is that people tend to react in one of two ways. They tend to react, okay, this was a learning lesson, but every similar situation going forward seems to be coming from a place of fear, where they've learned their lesson, but there's a lot of fear tied to it. They seem to reattract the same situations. And then there is the person who takes that lesson and is able to somehow turn it into wisdom, where there isn't that charge of fear. There is just the wisdom that they've gained from that experience. How was your journey with that? It sounds like it was a significant event in your life. Do you feel like you were able to recover from that pretty quickly?
It took years. When that was over and I wasn't in active pain, constantly reminded that I could get perspective back and get my spiritual footing again, because I was filled with, all the bad emotions you can have, right? Anger, pissed off, revenge. I mean, all of that. It wasn't so much fear. That came later. I sort of had a fear that I was going to fall into that trap again. But then the first time that somebody showed up, I had a good, strong voice inside of me now that could see very clearly And all of a sudden I realized I didn't have to be afraid of that anymore because I had that down. The only thing I had to do was deal with the energy of that in the correct way.
Mm.
It's what the I Ching is all about. Is the way of this, quote, superior man. Is how do you, I don't know if you're familiar with the I Ching. There are 64 situations that each soul will be presented with. And in this case, you can't, you will relive that situation over and over and over again until you stand in that person's shoes and begin to understand why they became that way. I relied on other people who have the ability to survive, so I have to steal from them because I can't figure out how to do it on my own. And that comes from deep experience in childhood that somehow trashed me so that I didn't feel worthy to be able to take care of myself in the universe. But for me, it was more of the blessing of the lesson that I got taught and the realization that happened to me where I realized that this guy was sort of the universe's equivalent of burning my house down. It was like the universe manipulated this poor bastard to rip me off so that I could get the lesson I needed.
What supported you throughout that process? Did your relationship with sound support you in that process at all?
What would have happened to me if I didn't have that in my life? Because, my whole business is stress reduction. I'm the stress meister. So if I'm going to be the stress meister, then the universe has to load me up with all the experiences of stress that you can imagine so that I can get firsthand experience to be the expert I am.
Of course. Thank you, universe. You were explaining your process. I thought it was so interesting about with the I Ching and how you go through your process of you're dealing with a difficult situation or a stressful situation, and you refer to that, and your inquiry is, what's the lesson here? It sounds like, what's the lesson here, and how do I go through this with grace?
How do I walk through this one? 100% centered. How does my Buddha nature walk through this door? The edition of the I Ching that I use is called the Wilhelm Baines edition of the I Ching. It's the only one to buy. That book has commentaries by Confucius and the introduction written by Carl Jung. 5,000 years old, the oldest written text of wisdom on the planet. But it's this reservoir of great wisdom that seems to have been overlooked and not too many people know about it. It answers your question so mind-blowingly perfect that you start to become wary of consulting it. It becomes a sacred thing. It's not, it's sort of like in the 60s, the real consciousness explosion movement of the 60s that was galvanized by the use of psychedelics were used as a sacrament to awaken. And sort of the real people, that's how they were using it. You would prepare. You'd find a spot that's safe. You would fast. You would prepare for a week, whatever. You wouldn't, like, later on, when it started catching on, then the hippies showed up who would have a party and get drunk and stoned and drop acid. I mean, that's a whole different thing. And then the cameras show up and the news organizations think this is what the movement is because they're photographing hippies. But the real people have moved on long ago. It's the same thing now with meditation. It's like now every Tom, Dick, and Harry has got some book or course. In Farsi, in the Middle East, there's a word for the worst of the worst possible flim-flam thief of all time. It's called hasnamus. It's the concept of a spiritual thief, someone who purports that they know how to help you on your spiritual path, when in reality, it's all fake and they don't have any idea. They're just a guy like anybody else who's read some things or attended somebody else's class and realizes, all I got to do is put on a white robe and some beads and talk some platitudes, and I'll get, I can, and then I can write a book and I can have some workshops and I can get the girl too. I mean, it's like, it's the worst, because not only are you stealing a person's money, you're stealing their spiritual path.
Yeah, Dr. Jeff, I really, really can relate to that. And I have a fascination for the 60s, even though I was a child in the 60s, but there is a significant turnaround around the 60s. But my curiosity is around something that you mentioned. You talked about the choice between the fate and the free will. I really love to hear your elaboration on that. Where do you see fate? What do you call fate? What's the meaning of fate as far as you're concerned? And the free will, and how do they work together?
The best example I can think of is choosing the right or the left fork. And the right fork is following your heart. And following your heart means to surrender to what it's telling you and listen to it telling you, and believe that the universe has your back. That the core of it is, I believe the universe has my back. When I come to the fork and I have to make a decision, the universe divides into two parallel universes, one where I make the left fork and one where I make the right fork, and each of those two reaches another fork forever. And every fork divides the universe into two parallel universes again. So now we get this exponential explosion of an infinite number of corridors of every possible decision that all of us are making simultaneously. And now you can start to get a glimpse of what real infinity looks like. There's no way for the brain to conceive infinity. It can't wrap itself around that and define it. Defining something means I can walk all the way around it and define every aspect of it. Can't do that with infinity. Your ordinary thinking mind can't get big enough, but big mind can, because that is big mind. So if you can get this part out of the way and touch big mind and get closer to the present moment, and in the present moment, everything cancels out. The scientific community just 5 or 6 years ago had a public announcement. Here's the current state of science and what we think reality is. Number one, consciousness is a requirement for reality to exist. Excuse me, say what?
Groundbreaking.
I mean, what? It means that, this is all based on Schrodinger's cat paradox and the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, which many people don't even know what that is. But the idea that if no one is there to witness, then the universe exists in a potential to be, but it's not there yet. It's an extension of Schrodinger's cat paradox. So Schrodinger is this Nobel Prize-winning physicist who discovered with math on a board the secret of it all. So he made an allegorical story to illustrate what he had seen, called a thought experiment. And the most famous one of all is the Schrodinger cat paradox. You put a cat in a box with a bottle of cyanide and a hammer suspended above it, and you close the box and give it a shake. This is simplified, but a random event is going to make the hammer drop or not. Let's say the random event is I'm going to give it a shake. It's either going to drop or not. And if it drops, it breaks the cyanide, kills the cat. Right. So I put the lid on, give it a shake, look at my watch, take some notes because I'm a scientist. 3 minutes later, I open the lid to take a look and see what happened. And let's say I see a dead cat. The weird thing is that at the moment that I close the lid and I can't see in there anymore, the cat pops into a living/dead cat state. It becomes a potential to be a living cat or a dead cat, but it can't be decided until consciousness arrives on the scene to witness what took place. So I did that 3 minutes later. When I lifted the lid, I looked in there, and the Twilight Zone cat collapsed into one of the two, and in this case, it became a dead cat. And now I'm saying, okay, when I shook the box 3 minutes ago, the cat died. No, that's not what happened. 3 minutes ago, when you shook that box, the cat entered into the Twilight Zone state. The cat only became the dead cat 3 minutes later when you lifted the box and created the past event.
Wow, that is fascinating.
So,
Let's take,
it's interesting because then it makes you question causality. You are not the author.
Yeah,
You are not the author of that outcome. You might think it might look like you were. You open the box and you see.
No. Let's take it one step more. Here in San Diego, there's a physicist, Fred Allen Wolf. He was the white-haired guy in what the bleep do I know, or that movie. He took on the Schrodinger cat paradox. He said, "What is this whole business with the cats? How does that relate to my life?" Right. So let's reform that. That now is all that exists. The next moment from now is the closed box. And I'm going to step into the next moment for now, and the lid's going to fly off that box. And what's in the box is not a cat. It's an infinite field of all possibilities that could possibly exist in the mind of God. And all of them have an equal weight to be the next moment from now. Question is, why is it always me with the next word and you listening? What's choosing the next moment? When consciousness arrives on the scene of the next moment from now, with the infinite field of all possibilities, I don't come with a clean slate. I'm coming with an expectation. And the expectation is that this is what the world looks like. The world is populated by people, and that I'm 76 years old, and I've got a room full of stuff that can prove it, and I've got old photographs, and I can call my son in here and say, yeah, he's known me since he was born, and I've got proofs, right? But I'm creating those proofs out of whole cloth right now because I expect that this is what it looks like. And then it pops into existence, and it's a movie I can't see through, so it convinces me that I was correct. And so therefore that convinces me that the next moment for now should be a continuation of this one with my next word. And when I'm presented with the next moment with the infinite field, I'm even more assured that this is the way it is. And therefore, I just provided the universe with the path of least resistance that the universe is always looking for. In the path of infinite possibilities, the universe doesn't know which one to choose, so it created me to choose. And I choose that one by my expectation and give it special significance. And the universe is looking exactly for that as a path of least resistance to save energy. So we are creating our own reality. But underneath the hood, we have the collective unconscious mind, right? Carl Jung said something about that. If whatever you don't work out on the inside in the subconscious realm, you project it into the outside and make it manifest there to deal with, right? From that standpoint, our deep collective unconscious mind, where we all are one, is choosing the reality we're currently experiencing. And we can change it by changing our expectation. This idea that when a patient would come to me who is convinced that all of the problems she's got is because she was molested when she was 5 by her uncle. Excuse me, you were never 5, and there was never an uncle. You're making up that story out of whole cloth, moment by moment, and perpetuating that. So what's the perk? What's the perk that your spirit is getting out of living this story? Why are you creating this story? What's the purpose of it? If you can penetrate into the purpose of why you have to have this story, then the charge blows off the story and you're clean. There's no reason for you to be suffering as somebody who was molested when you were 5, because that never happened.
Well, it's hard for someone to swallow that, to digest that. It's true. It's in absolute terms, it's true. It's just really hard for the ego self to swallow that. And yeah, it's fascinating.
No, what's harder is look at the world we're in right now. Why are we manifesting this crap show that we're in? Of all the infinite possibilities of a world that we could all create together, why is it this one? Why are we doing this? And what can we do about it? Right?
What could we do about it?
Bind ourselves together. Use the tools of the 21st century to align our consciousnesses together and reformat the collective unconscious idea about what kind of world we want. That's what I do with my live streams every Sunday. Every Sunday is a live stream. It's a group global mind link. In other words, when I'm sure you've been to, somebody puts on a global peace day, and there's going to be 10,000 people showing up, and there's going to be a parade of people doing bowl ceremonies and sound baths and meditations and visualizations all day. And at some point, everybody's going to get together and meditate for world peace and have 10 minutes of silence or something. It's a good idea. It's the 100th monkey idea. It's what you're trying to achieve, that you get a minimum number of people resonating to the same idea. That idea becomes manifest. But no two people meditating have the same idea of what meditation is, and no two people go to the same place. So it's a good idea, but it's like herding cats. The focus isn't there that is required in the universal plan to get that job done. You've got 80% of the idea, but the last 20% is missing. So in this case, what if all those people, what if 30,000 people now all have headphones on, and you have a meditation soundtrack with binaural beats and brainwave entrainment, which is going to resonate everybody's brainwaves to exactly and precisely the same place, exactly the same brain state. Mm-hmm. And with headphones and binaural beats is forcing synchronicity of the hemispheres, which is where the doors open up to higher levels of information and influence. Mm-hmm. So that's the experiment of the weekly live streams, a spiritual scientific experiment to see if we can shift the quantum field by the power of numbers, by mind linking ourselves together using the technologies that are destroying the planet.
That's powerful. That's really powerful. Wow. It's incredible. I pray every night. I pray for people. I pray for world peace. And when I pray for world peace, what I pray for is actually, I say, God, everybody's praying around the world, and may, through your grace, these prayer energies come into more coherence with each other. May they come into more coherence so that the field that they create, their potency increases. And you're doing that. And that's amazing.
We're actually doing it.
You are you are one of the manifestations of that. And that's incredible. So, we're not only talking about the benefits that it can create for humanity, but also for the individual.
Yeah.
We know through, multiple scientific experiments done through the decades that when a group of people get together to meditate, and if there's a strong enough coherence, there can be very profound benefits for the person, whether that be physical health benefits or emotional benefits or spiritual benefits for the person, for the spiritual aspirant.
Well,
it's incredible what you're doing. It's really incredible.
There's the power of prayer. Essentially the same thing. You get a number of people in a circle around one person who's sick, and everybody is focusing on that one person and visualizing whatever's wrong with them going away. Then you're aligning people pretty close. But if everybody had headphones on, then it would be closer. Now we're using science to push the envelope to give us our best possible chance of an outcome.
You're ensuring the resonance, basically. You're guaranteeing by doing that, using
you're trying to
waves.
Remove as many elements of chance as possible. Mm-hmm. We're in the 21st century for a reason. There's a reason why we're in this envelope of high tech that's exponentially exploding, and it's got all kinds of downsides, but penetrating through is this good side. The possibility of using high technology to look inside our brains and see, what does meditation look like? What does samadhi look like as a brain thing? Look into the autonomic nervous system. What happens in the autonomic nervous system when I'm in a samadhi state? And now we've got binaural beats and brainwave entrainment that can put your brain into any state we want. So let's put it into the state we saw in these high-level meditators. And now we've got meditation training wheels. it's not up to chance anymore. Instead of me asking with small mind, how do I meditate? And there's no real answer for that. I can entrain your brainwaves to a pattern that is known to be associated with high level meditation and viscerally place you dead center in the middle of that experience so that big mind can put that coat on and say, oh, this is what it is like. This is it. And then take you to a gym and do that over and over and burn neural pathways to configure your brain in these high states. I mean, to me, that's what a Tibetan bowl was. You rub the Tibetan bowl and there's a beautiful sound. That's from the alloy. Change the alloy, change the sound. So if you know what you're doing, you create the correct alloy that centers your mind, cuts through. But within that sound, there's a pulsing. So go grab your Tibetan bowl when this is over and rub that bowl and listen for the wah-wah thing that's happening there. Mm-hmm. The wah-wah, when you measure it, it's a brainwave entrainment frequency. Wow. It's entraining your brainwaves to a specific state. It's like these guys knew that 3,000 years ago. It's like, holy moly. It's like, and I keep thinking to myself, some monk came out from behind some monastery with the very first Tibetan bowl. Somebody had to make the first one. That was a high-tech device. That blew everybody's minds. You rub this bowl and all the monks go, whoa, I'm there right now instead of 20 years of struggle. How did you do that?
Cheat code. So for people who want to partake in your Sunday meditations or learn more about your work with sound, where do they go?
The live stream's on Sundays at 12:30 California time, and it's go to YouTube and do a search for Dr. Jeffrey Thompson. You'll see it.
And they should probably subscribe so that they can be notified when you do the live stream, right?
Yeah, we have a notification comes out. What's the next one going to be about? I've been doing this for 5-6 years. And if you go to the right place, you can see all of the ones that I've done and all the ones I did 2 years ago. All kinds of different titles, but and then there's websites, the scientificsounds.com. Scientific sounds. So now I've got a bunch of generic soundtracks in all kinds of categories for changing your consciousness, sleep, meditation, relaxation, creativity. I train practitioners in finding specific sounds for your nervous system and your brain. That's called biotuning. So now it's all specific to you. Mm-hmm. And that's Sky Collective, SKYE-collective.com. That is an international group of practitioners who do this, and we're all together in forums online. It's a movement to change the face of healthcare.
That's incredible.
We also have Sky Lounge, all one word, SKYE Lounge, and that's our own place where you can come, and it's here in Carlsbad, California.
To the listeners, we'll put all of those links for you in the show notes.
Thank you.
It's been an honor to be with you, Dr. Jeff. It's been really, I mean, we could just go on for days. I definitely could go on listening to you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jeff.
Yeah.
This was a joy.
So let's keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for tuning in today. For a list of the links and other resources referenced in this episode, check out the podcast description.
If you're benefiting from our podcast, we'd love if you could help us reach more people by subscribing. Your support means the world to us. From our hearts to yours, we thank you.